Hey everyone, 99% of you watching aren't subscribed. Let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and at 1,000 subscribers, we'll drop special stories just for you.
The Zinthri conglomerate was not prone to mistakes. As the oldest bureaucratic entity in the Milky's spiral arm, its decision-making process spans 17 sentient AI layers, 2 probability engines, and a council of 431 alien species. Decisions were never made hastily. But in cycle 7283K, they did something that would be whispered in starports and war chambers for centuries. They hired humans. It began with the Caretaker Initiative, a well-meaning program meant to restore and maintain the ecological balance of marginal worlds. Planetary reserves too chaotic, too precious, or too post-cataclysmic to leave unattended. Worlds where an overgrowth of life, entropy, or invasive species had reached tipping points. Theta 9 was one such world, a rare biosphere reserve planet located in the Kelrani Expanse. Covered in forests with mineral-rich magma veins, methane lakes, and singing granite ranges. It was sacred to 7 civilizations and infamous for its fatal unpredictability. The Council needed beings that were adaptable, emotionally invested in preservation, and not easily killed. Enter humanity, the human application. Their application was unexpected. After centuries of internal wars, climate recovery efforts, and a brief flirtation with extinction, humans had banded together into something called a Unified Terran Restoration Corps, UTRC. Their central slogan read, "We broke our planet. Let us fix yours." It struck a chord. Their dossier boasted decades of rewilding, polar reformation, synthetic ozone crafting, and asteroid greening. They even had emotional testimonials from weeping grandmothers and clean energy billionaires. And most importantly, no one else applied for Theta 9. Against protests from the Arthraxians, who called humans chaos with fingernails, and the soft-shelled diplomats of the Merle kin, the Council approved Earth's proposal with a 62% vote. Humans arrived in a ship named Gaia's Gambit, smiling, caffeinated, and wearing eco-camouflage suits with dozens of unnecessary pouches. Initial deployment. Casey Monroe, site lead and field supervisor, stepped onto Theta 9 and immediately deployed his drones. A former environmental engineer with a background in geothermal repurposing, he surveyed the terrain and reported, "The land is hostile. Vegetation's fighting itself. Flora density is approaching collapse conditions. Recommend deep scrub and magma flash clear." When asked by a Zinthri inspector whether that meant firebombing the terrain, Monroe replied cheerily, "Oh no, we're just letting the planet sweat it out." Within 72 hours, 3 dormant volcanic ridges had been gently nudged into eruption. Lava cascaded across the moss forest, annihilating thousands of species, some of which were previously undocumented. In the human report to HQ, it was listed as Phase 1, Terrain Reset. Controlled eruptions used to burn away unstable ecoload. Vast fungal blooms neutralized. Lava used to vitrify and seal unstable methane vents. Net positive, 57.3%. Species loss, acceptable. The humans had coined a term already, glazing, cultural misalignment. The Council was confused. Alien civilizations had spent millennia developing symbiotic harmony protocols. They nudged ecosystems back into balance with sonic gardening, biome feedback resonance, and other delicately measured, centuries-long techniques. Humans, by contrast, burned, flooded, froze, or vitrified. They reclaimed biomes the way a demolition crew might reclaim a condemned skyscraper. When the Merlekin delegation visited Theta 9 and witnessed a glacier being airlifted via orbital drone array and dropped onto a wetland to shock the aquatic pH levels, the delegation screamed in 17 frequencies and passed out from empathic trauma. "This isn't preservation," they protested later. "It's scorched earth art therapy." But the Council ran the numbers. Soil health was improving. Carbon levels down. Tectonic activity stabilized. The sky even looked bluer. And that's when someone, likely a human, posted the before and after pictures. Going viral. Images spread across the galactic net. A valley previously writhing with carnivorous bramble wolves, now a shimmering black glass plain reflecting Theta 9's twin suns. A cave once teeming with neuroparasites, now sealed in a perfect crystal dome, labeled, "Preserved for future admiration." A former battlefield of two rival insectoid colonies, now glazed into a peaceful diorama, complete with visitor plaques and drone tour options. Other civilizations began whispering, could the humans fix our unstable oceans? What if they glazed our war moons before the bombs fall? We need help on J-Taxate. The fungus won't stop growing. The humans had results. Brutal, irreversible, strangely beautiful results. And no one wanted to admit they kind of liked the aesthetic. The first glazing ceremony. 3 months after arrival, the UTRC held their first public glazing ceremony, inviting council representatives to witness the full preservation of the shifting orchid fields, a volatile biome known for its aggressive floral mine spores. Standing before alien diplomats and watching sentient flowers crystallize mid-bloom, Casey Monroe turned to the audience and said, "We call this violent mercy. We preserve it forever, exactly as it was, before it destroys itself or someone else. This is what we do." The crowd was silent. Then a Czarn diplomat clapped. Then another. Then another. The humans smiled. And the stars, unknowingly, shivered. 3 months into human caretaker program, Theta 9 was beginning to resemble something out of a Terran avant-garde museum. Forests vitrified into living sculptures. Wetlands flash-frozen and repurposed as oxygen farms. And amidst this questionable beauty floated Theta 9's crown jewel, the Scolari Leviathans. They were considered one of the galaxy's iconic macrofauna, hovering silently at the edge of the stratosphere. Sky whales, enormous bioluminescent hydrogen-filled life forms the size of Terran cities. Their bellies glowed with drifting patterns of starlight-mimicking chromatophores. They fed on magnetic particles and spoke in harmonic pulses that echoed through upper atmospheric wind tunnels. They were not sentient, but they were sacred. To the Kelari nomads, they were sky spirits. To the Vren collective, they were ancient biosymphonies. To the humans of the UTRC, they were a climate control risk. Casey Monroe's decision. It began with anomalies in the magnetic field. Weather drones reported erratic spikes. Storms formed too quickly. Atmospheric balance was off. UTRC Field Supervisor Monroe traced the fluctuations to the orbiting pods of sky whales. He squinted at the data. The numbers told a story. Methane emissions, localized heating, harmonic turbulence. They're geo-farting. Monroe declared at a team briefing. Massive amounts of methane. Enough to cause upper atmospheric drift. Lead ecologist Marla Singh frowned. They're sacred. We're not authorized to engage. Casey replied with that unnerving human smile. The kind aliens had learned to fear. We won't engage. We'll study. Tranquilizer. Tag. Observe. That's it. The incident. They use a high-altitude drone equipped with a biodegradable, non-lethal tranquilizer. In theory, the dart struck the largest whale, nicknamed Moby Zen by the team. The sky whale wobbled, paused mid-glide, then began its descent like a falling cathedral. The whale crashed into the copper spine, a mountain range riddled with magnetic ore. The impact caused a subcrustal echoquake. Electromagnetic pulses spiked. The surrounding ionosphere collapsed for 2.3 seconds, just long enough to destabilize the planetary ozone layer. The UTRC watched in horrified silence as an aurora of plasma storms erupted from the crash site. Chunks of sky whale rained across the valley in gory, glittering arcs. Marla Singh vomited. Casey Monroe muttered, "That escalated." Cover-up or innovation? Most species would have mourned, or called for immediate human exodus. But humans pivoted. In less than 48 hours, UTRC teams erected temporary ozone stabilizers, deployed cryo-scrubbers, and launched a culinary research unit. Yes, culinary. The soft tissues of sky whale proved rich in trace minerals and naturally detoxifying compounds. UTRC chefs, formerly Earth-based doomsday preppers, created a new protein source, sky meat. Singh protested, "You're harvesting a sacred being." Casey shrugged. "We're repurposing a natural tragedy into nutrient equity." The resulting product was freeze-dried into nutrient slabs. The UTRC's PR unit rebranded the crash as Operation Whalefall, turning cosmic tragedy into sustainable protein. They even filmed a slow-motion ad. A piece of sky meat floated in zero gravity. A voice whispered, "Preserve the planet. Nourish the stars." Whalefall, the taste of remorse. Galactic reactions. When news hit the conglomerate assembly, pandemonium broke out. The Kellari nomads mourned for 13 cycles. The Merlekin boycotted human nutrient exports. The Arthraxians, however, began buying shares in Whalefall Inc. Humans face a tribunal, the first since their assignment began. Monroe and Singh appeared via holo. A panel of alien judges grilled them for 18 standard hours. You tampered with sacred fauna. You caused a Class 3 biospheric anomaly. You turned an ecosystem trauma into a business model. The humans responded with graphs, data, charts showing ozone stabilization, soil improvement, population safety margins, and then the final blow, a 4-minute documentary, scored with gentle piano and overlaid with a child's voice saying, "We didn't mean to hurt the sky. We just wanted to help." The council was split, but the numbers, the metrics were better than predicted. The planet was healing. And so, by a narrow margin of 51%, humanity was absolved. Casey Monroe turned to Singh afterward and said, "We survived the tribunal. You know what that means." "You're not going to say it." "Glaze is greenlit. All systems go." She sighed. God help the next sacred species. The rise of Whalefall aesthetic. Unintended consequence. The crash site, now known as a Glassfall crater, became a tourist attraction. Human drones had preserved sky whale fragments in crystalline containment units. Fins mid-undulation, tendrils curling in soft glass. The crater glowed softly at night, surrounded by oxygen-rich lavender flora and drone-controlled mood lighting. Artists from the Antarctica called it tragic minimalism. Fashion houses from the Rigellian system released the Whalefall line, metallic folds and gentle hues mimicking biocollisions. A new genre of human music emerged. Skycore, all harmonic frequencies of the sky whales, recorded pre-crash, looped into ambient electronica. The humans, astonishingly, turned an ecological catastrophe into a cultural export, and the council began to suspect something profound. Humans didn't just survive disasters. They metabolized them into culture, capital, and care. Dangerously well. The term started as a joke. After the Sky Whale incident, the Unified Terran Restoration Corps, UTRC, began whispering among themselves about glazing things. It started in engineering tents, spread to the exobotanist teams, and eventually reached Field Supervisor Monroe himself. The word caught on because it was accurate and strangely satisfying. Glazing V. To preserve by means of extreme vitrification. To seal nature into a pristine, unchangeable state. To protect through permanent stasis. It wasn't long before someone proposed it formally. A planetary-wide preservation strategy based on the principle of glaze first, question later. They called it the Glaze Protocol. The philosophy of glazing. Marla Singh hated it. She sat in the middle of the mobile biopreservation lab, watching technicians feed living specimens into cryokills. A delicate vine creature from the red was slowly encased in carbon glass as she sipped recycled tea from a metal cup that read, "Seal it to save it." "This is taxidermy on a planetary scale," she muttered. "Not taxidermy," said Monroe, leaning over her workstation. "It's proactive conservation. We're freezing these things before they die or kill everything else." Singh gestured to a drone display. The glass thicket used to be a living jungle. It's an art exhibit now. He didn't flinch. A safe, eternal art exhibit. To the UTRC, the logic was simple. Ecologies on the brink could no longer be trusted to heal themselves naturally. Time was too slow, balance too fragile, life too chaotic. So the answer was to pause the process, lock in beauty, and archive evolution. Glazing was a gift, a violent, irreversible gift. Exhibit, the Howling Spires. The Howling Spires were a range of naturally occurring stone formations inhabited by shrieking winds and parasitic cloud colonies. For decades, the conglomerate had designated the area as a do-not-intervene zone, due to its unpredictable weather and high predator density. But Monroe disagreed. Tourists get vaporized. Flight drones get shredded. And it's loud. Let's quiet it down. UTRC engineers installed cooling pylons and electromagnetic netting. The entire range was snap-frozen in a 4-hour operation involving supercooled fusion drones and pressure stabilization fields. When the sun rose the next day, the spires glistened like obsidian daggers entombed in diamond. The cloud parasites had been caught mid-feeding. Their tendrils forever curled in elegant spirals. It became the UTRC's flagship monument. A single plaque stood outside the frozen range. The howling spires, stillness forged by mercy. Glazed 7,283K, preserved by the human caretakers. Alien response: awe, envy, dread. For many species, the Glaze protocol crossed a line, and yet they watched with morbid fascination. The Andarxi, known for their spiritual biome temples, began sending envoys to observe human techniques. The Mrelfin, who had once tried to rehabilitate a rogue ocean for 1,100 years, watched in awe as humans sealed their own storm seas in 3 days. Even the skeptical Threx Dominion offered a request. Could the humans glaze our collapsing moon city before it falls into the acid sea? We'll pay in platinum and forgiveness. Glazing became a service, a status symbol. Worlds began hiring humans to preserve dangerous beauty, like commissioning apocalypse artists with flamethrowers. Inside the Glazing Academy, the UTRC built their first formal institution on Theta 9, the Interstellar Glazing Academy, IGA for short. It trained field engineers in rapid vitrification, trauma-resilient empathy, and alien aesthetics. Their motto, engraved in a shimmering wall of frozen stardust: beauty is fragile, freeze accordingly. Graduates were shipped off-world, accompanied by glazed samples of Theta 9's original ecosystem, sealed jars of still-writhing plant life, dormant predatory fungi, and a preserved sky whale at the size of a hover truck. Monroe gave commencement speeches where he said things like, "Don't save the world slowly, save it completely, and if it resists, glaze harder." Some clapped, others stared, unsure if it was a joke. Singh's protest. Marla Singh stood on the cliffs of the last unglazed biome, the Opal Dust Basin, a stretch of twilight-filtered forest known for its living mist and memory-altering pollen. She was alone, recording a protest transmission. This is Dr. Marla Singh. Log 317-B. Humans are not caretakers anymore. We're curators. We're taking things out of time, out of life. We call it preservation, but it's aesthetic control. We've stopped healing ecosystems. Now we exhibit them. Who gave us that right? Behind her, drone pylons hummed. Glazed teams were moving in. The last live birds of Theta 9, shimmering creatures with sound wave feathers, circled the forest, unaware they were minutes away from suspension. Marla dropped the recorder. A tear struck the soil, the last thing that would ever soak into the basin's moss. Glaze Incorporated. It wasn't long before the UTRC partnered with corporate allies. Thus was born Glaze Incorporated, humanity's first cross-galactic preservation and protection company. Their tagline, "We stop time." Beautifully, they offered packages. Emergency glaze for sudden ecological disasters or hostile takeovers. Legacy lock, ideal for ancestral lands or sacred groves. Memorial crystallization, encasing entire villages or structures post-catastrophe. Soon, other species began voluntarily offering up parts of their world for glazing, as offerings, archives, even status artifacts. And humans? They took it all in stride. They weren't conquerors. They weren't villains. They were curators of collapse. A planet transformed. By the end of cycle 7,283K, 74% of Theta 9's surface was sealed in glass, crystal, cryofield, or magnetic stasis. The planet glowed at night, a jewel box of preserved death. Orbiting tourists called it the Gallery Planet. The conglomerate called it stable. The UTRC called it home. Monroe, standing at the apex of the glass dunes, whispered to no one, "We saved it, the only way we know how." The wind stopped. The planet sighed. And somewhere far off, in a deep, Dark galaxy. Another planet flickered red on the conglomerate's endangered systems list. Glaze teams deployed. It was cycle 7286K when Commander Yellow Ruiz of the UDRC stood at the edge of Nebula Orchid 47, the last living biome on Theta 9 not yet under seal. The sky was violet. The floating orchid spores shimmered like stardust as they bobbed gently on the anti-grav currents above the petal plains. Ethereal birds, too delicate to survive contact with anything solid, sang harmonics in chords that had no names. Ruiz exhaled. Beautiful, unstable, dangerous. She pressed her gloved hand against the ignition node of the microglazer. 10,000 drones stirred in orbit. The world held its breath. Legacy of the Glazers. Ruiz was one of the first graduates of the Interstellar Glazing Academy, a child of Earth's last coral reef collapse. She had joined UDRC with stars in her eyes and vitrification fluid in her backpack. She remembered the old documentaries. Birds covered in oil, forests burning, water turned to acid. The idea of saving things forever had seduced her the way religion seduced others. But 3 years in the field had eroded the myth. Now she looked across glass valleys and glittering tomb forests and wondered whether they had preserved life or abandoned it for the illusion of safety. Still, orders were orders. Touring the dead. Theta 9 had become the galaxy's premier preservation site. UTRC shuttles ferried visitors from over 1,000 systems. They floated to the Whale Fall Crater Museum, admiring the glass-encased tendons of the fallen sky leviathan. They took selfies beside the frozen screechers of the howling spires, paused in reverent silence at the glass-brained coral fields, and dined on synthesized meals grown from algae once found in the now-encased redfin marshes. Children played holographic games, simulating glaze deployment. No one saw a living ecosystem. They saw curated stasis. Museumified wonder. To them, Theta 9 was a success story. To Ruiz, it was a fossil. The leak. 6 weeks after the final orchid glazing initiative began, a secure document surfaced in the galactic data stream. An internal memo from the Zinthri Conglomerate's Department of Sentient Risk Assessment. It read, Classified Species Profile, 00371, H-Human, Behavioral Traits, Empathic, Creative, Highly Adaptable, Preservation Strategy, Fixation on Permanence, Compelled to Preserve Beauty through Domination, Risk Factor, High, Primary Expression of Care, Control, Preservation Tendency, Irreversible, Aesthetic-Centric, Strategic Use Case, Black Small Square End-Stage Ecosystem Stabilization, Black Small Square Crisis Zone Final Intervention, Black Small Square Pre-Collapse Vaulting, Handling Protocol, Black Small Square Do Not Assign to Early-Stage Recovery Efforts, Black Small Square Deploy only when loss is inevitable, Black Small Square Always issue a final warning. They will love you, and in loving you, they will seal you away forever. The leak went viral across 34 galactic sectors. Some called it slander. Others called it prophecy. Ruiz read the document in silence. She didn't deny a word of it. The Orchid decision. Commander Ruiz hovered over the control panel. One press would begin the final phase. The Crystal Bloom, a 41-hour process that would encase Nebula Orchid 47 in a lattice of aerogel glass and oxygen-preserving polymer fields. Her Zelf-born assistant, a mist body being named Vess, watched with warbling concern. The spores are singing, Vess said. They know. Ruiz nodded. They always do. She paused. Her finger hovered over the ignition. Her orders were clear. Her instincts, less so. Behind her, the UTRC team watched silently. No one questioned her. That was the power of command in the final act. Only you get to choose whether the world ends. She sighed. One day, she whispered, they'll glaze us too. Then she pressed initiate. Galactic consequences. The crystal bloom completed without error. A 23-kilometer-wide orchid biome now shimmered in permanent stasis. Spores mid-sway, roots frozen mid-drink. Theta 9 was entirely sealed. Conglomerate officials praised the mission's completion. Dozens of worlds petitioned Glaze, incorporated for services. UTRC stock rose 12 points. Alien documentaries, hailed it a monument to human mercy. And yet, whispers grew. Across the Kelrani expanse, resistance groups formed. Species whose sacred groves had been preserved without full consent. Planetologists began questioning the long-term health of vitrified environments. The Andarksi pulled their support, calling the humans well-meaning ossifiers. Still, the humans smiled, polished their drones, cleaned their glass. They believed. They truly believed. Epilogue, the vault. 10 years later, in a void sector known as Vale 6, an ancient sentient moon was discovered. Carved into its crystal surface, in what appeared to be Terran dialect, were 6 words, etched with laser precision into the bedrock. We only wanted to save you. Beneath it, frozen beneath miles of translucent rock, lay 1,000 species, perfectly intact, unmoving, unaging, waiting, and still, somewhere, humans prepared for the next world, to preserve it, to freeze it, to love it so hard it couldn't die.